Let's go deeper into the discussion on judicial review. We now get into the conditions for the exercise of the court of its power. Now, you understand that the power of the judicial review emanates from the judicial power, which is granted by the Constitution to the Supreme Court and to such other lower courts as may be established by law. You look at the description of judicial power in Article 8 of Section 1, no? Section 1 of Article 8 of the Constitution. It says that judicial power includes the duty of the courts of justice to settle actual controversies involving rights which are legally demandable and enforceable, and to determine whether or not there has been a grave abuse of discretion amounting to a lack or excess of jurisdiction on the part of any branch or instrumentality of the government. From this provision, we come up with the uh, splitting or the dissection of what judicial power consists of. Judicial power per se is the duty of the courts to settle actual controversies between parties with their conflicting rights, no, which come from law. This includes the controversies existing between private individuals among each other. This is the general concept of what judicial power is. But in the Philippines, we have the expanded concept of judicial power, where we derive the power of judicial review from, which is to determine whether or not there has been grave abuse of discretion amounting to a lack or excess of jurisdiction on the part of any branch or instrumentality of government, not discounting the inclusion of the requirement of an actual case or controversy. The determination of grave abuse of discretion is what we now use as the basis for judicial review. This pertains to governmental actions that are excessive of their jurisdiction or sans their jurisdiction because of abuses of authority or violations of the Constitution. No? Uh, take note that the power of the court to exercise judicial review is embedded in our Constitution. In other countries, judicial review comes from jurisprudence or other sources of law. For example, in the US, judicial review comes from jurisprudence in the case of Marbury versus Madison. You try to look up the case, no? But in our jurisdiction, it comes from the Constitution itself. So it stems from the determination of whether or not there has been a grave abuse of discretion. You go to Balangawan versus Court of Appeals to get the description of what grave abuse of discretion is. It's such capricious and whimsical exercise of judgment as is equivalent to a lack of jurisdiction. The abuse of discretion must be grave, as where the power is exercised in an arbitrary or despotic manner by reason of passion, personal hostility, and must be so patent and gross to amount to an evasion of a positive duty or to a virtual refusal to perform a duty enjoined by or to act at all in contemplation of law. The word capricious, usually used in tandem with the term arbitrary, conveys the notion of willful and unreasoning action. You get the context by reading the case of Balangawan versus CAPs. For the exercise of judicial power in the original context and in the expanded context of judicial power, there is a requirement of an actual case or controversy. An actual case or controversy involves a conflict of legal rights or an assertion of opposite legal claims susceptible of a judicial resolution, as distinguished from a hypothetical or abstract difference or dispute. So there must be an opposition of rights, no? Otherwise, there is no dispute if there is no conflicting rights or assertions emanating from the same set of facts or law. So it requires an interpretation of law or the application of legal principles or the appreciation of facts in the application of law. According to Bernas, there is a need to require an actual case or controversy for the exercise of judicial powers because courts are not supposed to involve themselves in advisory opinions. These are unessential and results to nothing tangible or useful to our jurisprudence or the legal system. They cannot resolve faint or hypothetical constitutional problems, nor friendly suits or moot cases, cases which are stale, no? Because they have no legal effect or have no effect to or application, practical application to existing facts. Hmm. Case of Imbong versus Ochoa elaborates that the rule that courts do not sit to adjudicate mere academic questions. That's the rule to satisfy scholarly interest. That's why even friendly or discourses or disputes, not disputes, friendly banters or exchange of conflicting ideas, no matter how interesting or legally challenging or academically provoking, will not necessarily will not necessitate judicial intervention. It may provide for opinions, but it will not. They will not be legally binding. These opinions are only persuasive at any rate. No? The reason is that the court's resources are limited. Given that its dockets are also clogged, the court needs to maximize its resources. That's why it must only resolve matters which has bearing on the legal system or those which have bearing on actual issues involving parties, no, with conflicting interests. So the requirement for judicial review in order for the court to entertain such causes, no, are the following: the person challenging must the person challenging the act must have standing. There must be an appropriate case. Ito specific paper na gusto niyo tignan. An appropriate case or that the question of constitutionality must be raised at the earliest possible opportunity. Also, aside from the first three requirements, there must be the determination of a constitutional question po, um, which is unavoidable or which must be resolved as the very least mota of the dispute. So if a matter could be resolved in other means or other using other remedies, actually the Supreme Court or any lower court will not entertain such questions. So the first element is that there should be a party with a personal or substantial interest. Who is this party? He is the party who stands to be affected or prejudiced or benefited because of a decision, no? Of a decision that will be made by the court, or he is a party that will be or is affected by an impending or actual government action. No, so he must be affected by the government action or by a court decision. Um, in the case of Delebap versus Comelec, narrates the elements of standing. First is that the citizen, person who was standing, has personally suffered from or has sustained actual or threatened injury because of the conduct of government. Second, the injury is traceable to the challenge action. And the third, the remedy will be sufficient to redress the injury. We have some cases to highlight this. Paku versus Secretary of Education. This case actually relates to the petition or complaint of some members of the Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities in the 50s, you know, because the schools, before they can operate, will now be required to secure permits. The Supreme Court said that they do not have standing because they are already operating their schools. They are not affected by the regulation. So no standing. This case of Hoya versus PCGG, art lovers wanted to put a stop to the intended auction of the Marcos paintings, of the paintings which were from the original collection of the Marcoses. They were part of the sequestered properties. No? They wanted to question the auction, but Supreme Court said that they have no personality because they have no actual interest. They have no proprietary or owner's interest in the paintings. This case of Galicto versus Aquino is an example where a party, a petitioner, wanted to question, this Galicto wanted to question the moratorium or the policies of President Aquino then in the freezing of salary increases or increases in allowances or other monies given to specific offices. He may have felt as affected by the freezing of the increases, but the Supreme Court said whatever he claims no are mere uh, not even in Kuwait but are expectancies that did not even happen. His projected increase of salaries or compensation are only expectations. No, it is asserted. It is the asserted injury is asserted. If the asserted injury is more imagined than real, or is merely superficial or insubstantial, then the courts may end up being importuned to decide on a matter that does not, in reality, justify such a excursion into constitutional adjudication. So, while that we have the general elements for standing, there are certain sectors in the society we call non-traditional suitors. They are given standing because of their specific classification or category as citizens, no, suing in their special capacity. They may be suing as taxpayers, voters, citizens per se, and legislators. For taxpayers, this is the most common suit personality when they sue, no, for judicial review, and because public funds are prejudiced. Second, for voters, because the right to suffrage, if not integrity or validity of the electoral process is in peril. Third, for concerned citizens, when the right to information or rights to which are of transcendental importance are being threatened. And for legislators, when their powers and prerogatives are threatened, no, they can be entertained and be given a special standing in court. So you read the case of David versus Macapagal Arroyo. We'll explain the elements in the next video. Sorry, not the elements, but we shall explain this bare requirements for non-traditional suitors in the next video and proceed with judicial review.